to the cloud. All right, we are recording. I'm going to stop sharing my screen just so you can see our faces that are not in a very small window first. So, thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm seeing 94 people so far, more rolling in. So, yes, we are recording. We're going to make this recording available. So, anybody who registered, we're going to send out an email after with the link to the recording. So, if you have to leave or there's a part that you want to see again, you'll get a chance. So I'm JP Helveston. It's nice to meet all of you. Thanks for spending some of your Friday afternoon with us. I am a associate professor in engineering management and systems engineering. It's the only department that has engineering twice in its name, so it's a very special place at GW. And I also run our data analytics master's program. So I do a lot of data stuff, and that's my biggest application of these sorts of agentic tools. I want to introduce my co-host here, Pingfan. You want to say hi?
Hi. Yeah, my name is Pingfan Hu, and I am a PhD candidate, advised by Professor John Hofstein. So thank you, Professor, for introducing most of our workflow things, so I don't need to explain twice. And yeah, and for myself, I do data science studies in sustainability and human behavior. I also do open source software development in data science, and that's it.
Oh, thanks, Curtis. The shout out for SurveyDown. If you ever use
Yeah.
SurveyDown or you do survey work and want to do it better, you can check out our package SurveyDown. Yeah, so I should also say that Pingfan will soon be Doctor Who because he's defending in less than 2 weeks. So
But I can't do time travel, so I'm different from that Doctor
yes,
Who.
different kind of Doctor Who, but very exciting. So I'm going to share my screen, and this is how we're going to do it. One of us is going to be talking, the other one's going to be monitoring the chat because I won't be able to see it as well. And so as questions are coming in and things, he'll be responding. And if you haven't found it yet, I mean, we sent the email out. There's a link in there to find our workshop website. And I do want to start by giving credit to Pingfan for putting this together. I mean, he really built everything you see on the site. The setup page has all the software that you're going to need, really just these two pieces, and our slides. So there's three sections that we're gonna be working through. This should hopefully be kind of fun and hands-on. Like, we don't want this to feel super formal. I mean, we're basically just covering the workflow that we've been using for almost a year now, and this is our take on it. This is the way we use it, and we find easier, to use it. So our goal is to just get you set up, trying out how to use a tool like Claude Code, and to start learning how it works and see how it works. So, like I said, make sure if you haven't set this up, you at least get two things up. And these are just our recommendations. You don't have to use Positron. If you have a different IDE that you like, use VS Code, use RStudio, or something like that, or just a plain terminal. If you're really hardcore, you can do that. But Positron is a really nice one that we really like, and it's free and open source, super professional tool. Likewise, Claude Code, if you're using it with us, you have to have the Pro version, which is at least a $20 a month subscription. So you have to pay for that. If you're just trying it out and you're like, I don't want to do that yet, try Gemini CLI. That would be my recommendation because there is a free tier. And so for what we're going to do today, you probably will be okay with the free tier and not have to pay. But then I think by the end of this, you'll probably see why we use Claude Code. It's a very powerful one. So I'm going to get started with Agentic Basics. And this is just a what is Claude Code? How does it work? Let's try it and see how and get something going. Ping Fan will be covering the middle section on skill use. This is where things get a lot more powerful. Some of the really impressive things you can do with a tool like Claude Code will be there, and then I'll wrap up at the end on safety, which is probably the most important part, but often underemphasized. One other point of navigation when you're starting, if you're going to follow along with us, this is a live website. And so these slides are actually also a website. So if you hit the O key for overview, you can see all of our slides and jump around. Right. So if you're also following along, you're like, hey, I want to go back 2 slides, just go find it and click on it. Right. And you can go there. So this is us. We already introduced ourselves. This is where we're going. And let's start with what are these things? All right, so just to make it clear, chatbots are what most of us have used. If you've interacted with an AI before or a large language model, that form of AI, there's lots of different types. You've probably seen something like this, Claude, where you type and it replies, chat. They all kind of look the same. Um, that is what we're used to. Agents are pretty different. These are three of the parallel with these three companies. And they are more for, I think, longer term projects and also things like automating workflows on your machine. So, what makes an agent? Our definitions are pretty simplistic, and our goal is to give you a general mental model. Our goal is not to be like super technical and explain the model. We want you to use these tools and learn how to use them well, not necessarily to go spend like an hour lecture on what is an actual large language model. So the general thing that I think this is a good mental model to understand how they work and what they are. So you have your model, right? Your large language model. In this case of Anthropic, they have these names, and those names are based on kind of the size of the model. So haikus are very small, right? And that means it's a small model. Sonnets are a little bit bigger. Opus and Fable are larger. So larger models have more capabilities. They make better predictions. They can also kind of hold more context at once while they're uh, returning an output. And so that is kind of the brain. Okay. A harness is basically another program that controls how we interact with that brain. Okay. So what you've used already, like if you've used ChatGPT, that is itself a form of harness. When you type in a command, a prompt, and you hit enter, um, a program is going to do something with that, hand it to the model, and the model is going to return something, and it's going to hand you something back. And so that harness is important for safety. Like if you're asking for harmful things, that it doesn't pass those along to you. It kind of says, hey, maybe that's not smart. Let's not do that. But it also might have a bunch of tools, like searching the web. It might say, I don't know an answer. Let me go search for you. So that's a tool that the harness has, and it's going to go back and forth with the model based on what it finds. So tools like Claude Code or Gemini CLI, these are agentic harnesses to some extent. They also have similar tools like that, but they also have the ability to run commands on your computer. So they can edit files, they can look at files, they can open up folders and see what's in there. And so that's kind of the idea of what the harness is doing there. And then the thing that makes them really powerful is loops. Okay, so it's this ability to continuously do this kind of a loop until it decides it's done. So it's going to observe something, it's going to think about what to do, and then take an action, and then look at its results again and say, well, I built this file, I made these edits. Is that done? Or have I achieved the goal? If not, I'm going to continue. So you can give it wide-ranging tasks like, I want you to build me this website for me, and then just say go, and it'll continue to do this loop until it has a website that it thinks is good. So that is very different from what a chatbot would do, right? Chat interfaces, it's back and forth, one turn at a time. Okay, so we'll be doing this, and we'll be doing exactly that example, building a website, but not yet. So as a check-in at this point, we are going to be doing this live with you. Our hope is for you to try this in real time. So this is the check that you have everything set up the way you would need to follow along with this workshop. And again, you don't have to follow along. But if you want to, I hope most of you are, this is what we want you to give me a thumbs up if you've got all these set up. So we're going to start by making a folder. I'm going to open my desktop on my Mac, and I'm going to make a new little folder called My Site, because we are going to build a website together, and that's what it's going to be called, My Site. You can call it anything, you can put it anywhere, but desktop is pretty easy to find. And then I'm going to open up Positron. And again, if you don't have this app installed, back to the setup page over here, and you'll find it. Positron. Oh, you know what I didn't do before this is I did not change my settings to light mode. I think I should because I think it looks better on the screen. Um, let's just comment that out. So that, okay, now it's going to look a little probably better for everybody. So I was working in a different project earlier, but what we're going to do is I've got Positron open. I'm going to say File, Open Folder. All right, and I want you guys to open your folder to your folder that was on your desktop, that little My Site. Boom. That's the two most important steps, I think, to getting started and set up right. And the reason we prefer that you do things this way is because as we create files in this folder, you're going to see them over here. And it's really important that your terminal be also looking at that folder so that it knows where should I be editing files. And I find this to be like at least 50% of the challenge people have getting set up. If you've never coded before, especially, this might feel like weird, like what is this program, positron? If you're familiar with code, then everything I'm saying should be probably the workflow you do as well. You're probably familiar with it. So that's the first two steps. We have a folder and we've opened positron to that folder. The last thing we're going to do is start Claude. All right, so I'm going to go to my terminal, which for me, it's over here. Yours might be on the bottom half of your screen. It depends on how your positron is set up. I like mine split where it's like left and right. If you can't find it, go up here, terminal, new terminal, and that will open one up for you. And this, you can also verify that it's looking at the right place because it's on my desktop and it's looking at my site. And if I type Claude here and I hit enter, I am now got Claude Code running and it's ready to go. I can ask it to do something and it will edit files or do whatever I ask it to do in my folder. So do we have a lot of thumbs up that people are good? I haven't been checking. If you're here or if you're able to do this with me in real time, you can, I guess, raise your hand. That works. Raising your hand. I see some hands going up. Not too many yet. Okay, 16, 17. Um, all right. And I don't have any way of knowing if you're having trouble. So if you're stuck on anything or this isn't working, you can also just paste in the chat and Pingfan will be there helping you out, responding with you. Okay. So we're not going to do anything together yet. I'm going to do something, but I want you guys to just make sure we're all set up. So good place to do that little check-in. All right. So what can we do with these things? This tool and any agent. I like to think of it as doing things with your files on your computer, like just like you might do, right? It can write code. I mean, I think the name Claude Code implies that it was made for code, but really it's for kind of doing anything with your files on your computer. So it can do things like summarize documents or write documents. It can automate tasks. I could have it open up my web browser and navigate to a website. I could have it go to Google Flights and find me a flight and book it for me if I really wanted to. That might be a little dangerous though, because it might book the wrong thing and spend a lot of money, and I don't want it to. So be careful with the permissions you give it. But today we're just going to build a simple website. I think that's a simple enough exercise to see um, some of the things it can do. Okay, so we're going to build a website. Websites are just a bunch of files that are connected together. So something like this, where every file ends in HTML and you have a style file. That just tells you how you want things to look, like the fonts and the colors and stuff like that. HTML, by the way, just means hypertext markup language. It is a markup language in the sense of like, if you open up Word and you say, I want this word to be bold, that is markup. You're saying markup this to be bold, make this italic, make this underline. That is kind of what we're really doing. If you look at the source code of any website, most HTML is just a bunch of that stuff, but in a codified way. So we're going to make this website. I'm going to copy and paste this prompt so it just kind of goes off and does this. And we're going to do it in real time. You guys don't have to do this yet. And in fact, I would ask you not to do it yet because you're going to do it in a little bit on your own. And I'm putting it in auto mode. So it's just going to, this is the most dangerous thing you could do is just autonomously let it go without supervision. But it's a simple enough task and we've tested it. So I think it'll be fine. So it's going to build a website about Tom Hanks. We just kind of chose that randomly, and we want a website that has multiple pages and pages about some of the prominent films he was in. So that prompt would produce something like this. So we stuck an example in here because I don't want to have to sit and wait for that to run. And this was actually one real one that it gave us. Each one is going to look a little different because these systems are probabilistic. There's, they're always going to be a little bit slightly different. But this one had some notable films, and if you click on any of these films, you go to the page about that film, and you can go back. And we have 6 pages and a style sheet. Great. Um, so again, that's like ours should produce something like this. It should in my folder see a bunch of HTML pages and a style page, and each of these things are themselves just code. But Claude Code can produce that code. It can generate that code for us. And it's literally like one line at a time, like one character at a time, just like when you work with the chatbot and you see the lines coming up one character at a time, it's basically doing the same thing. It's just producing all these tokens, and that produces these files for us. So if you've never made a website, this is really what's going on behind them. Your web browser is looking at this HTML page. It's showing you something like this. And if you click on things like a navigation bar, that's just saying, okay, switch to that page or switch to this page, right? So that's really all we're doing. There's nothing really complex about it. Um, and then the style sheet, like I said, just kind of modifies the look and feel. So what do things look like? I'm going to switch back and see where we're at. Okay, it's been building some things while I've been gone. And you can see it wrote these different HTML files. Great. So the agent is very easy. If I look at any one of these, it looks pretty horrible. This is what HTML looks like. It is not very easy to read as a human, but it's what your browser understands. So if I open this instead in my web browser, if I go over here and open my index page, which is usually the home page, it looks like this. Much nicer, right? Um, so it looks a little different from the one we showed earlier, right? It chose a dark mode. The background is a dark color, and it does have like these links to these pages. So some of that is somewhat similar where I can click on a page. But imagine hand typing this entire site. How much time and effort that would take. And in just a couple minutes while we were talking, it's been building these. Now, I haven't verified if any of this stuff is right yet. It probably is because Tom Hanks is pretty famous, and it's probably pulling this from Wikipedia or something. But nonetheless, um, all of the content here was automatically generated very quickly. So you can hopefully already see how very different this is from a chat interface, right? If you were on ChatGPT or something and you asked for the exact same prompt, it might be able to generate all these files, and then you would have to download them as a zip file. That's probably how it would do it. But here we have it directly, on our computer already, and now I can look at that site and I can ask Claude to modify things. And I can change it kind of in real time here. So it's been running for 3 minutes, just over 3 minutes. It says its site was built, so it under 4 minutes it built my site. Great. Okay. Um, so like I said, you will get a chance to do this as well momentarily. So before we go to our practice, which is coming up, um, I want to talk a little bit more about some other commands and other ways that you can further fine tune and control what Claude is doing, because it's really important that we have that kind of control over it. So these are all called slash commands because when you're in Claude, if you type slash, there's all these different kinds of commands that you can tell it to do. Many of these come pre-built. Actually, all of these come with Claude Code already, but you can also make your own. And that's what we're going to be talking about in the next section on skills, how you can give it your own skills to run. And I'll walk through several of these on the next few slides. Some of them I'm not going to cover, resume and rewind. They're pretty self-explanatory. If you close your positron and you start up again, you can say resume so that it kind of reopens the last session you were working on. If it makes a change that you don't like, you can say rewind and it will go back and undo that. But let's talk about some of these first ones like init. Okay, init creates this file called claude.md. So let's look at what that is. A claude.md file is a top level file in your project that tells Claude what your project is about, basically. It's like a quick summary so that it knows, hey, this is what we're working on right now. If you're using Gemini CLI, this file is called agents.md. It's the exact same purpose, but we're not going to be talking about like the syntax of working with Gemini. But you can hand make this yourself. I mean, you can go in and type it out and say, this is a project about Tom Hanks's, a website on Tom Hanks or something. But we typically don't do that. We usually run init because when you do that, it actually looks at the files for you and it summarizes itself. So I can say init and it's going to go make my own claude.md file. All right. And while it's making that, I'm going to go on to my next slide, which is an already pre-built one. All right. So if you look at what's inside these things, it's usually stuff like this, like what is this? What is this project? And this is why we're all inside a folder, right? We're inside this My Site folder because all our changes are built inside here. It tells me maybe the structure. It often will index all the files and kind of say for itself, hey, Claude, this is what these files are. These are pages about movies and any other kind of conventions. And so we have a convention about styling. We say we want all the style to be inside one folder, one file called style.css. So fonts, colors, all that. And then we also have some instructions on how to add a new page. So if there was a film that I wanted that wasn't on here, um, I could say, add a new film about X, and it would do it in this particular way because I've already told it here, this is what I want you to do. Start by copying this existing one and then going and modifying the actual text. Um, so I don't know what it actually produced. I can see it now. This is telling me a static informational fan site about Tom Hanks. Great. Um, and it does have some structural conventions it came up with on its own. It does adding a film page. So I didn't actually tell it any of that, but it discovered that on its own by looking at the consistency of these different pages that it built. Now, I want to emphasize that you don't stop here. Like, when I ask for an initial Claude file, that's kind of when I say init, I always read this as like initial. Like this is just my first draft. I'm probably going to read it and update it. If there's something in here that I don't like this isn't necessary. I'm not locally serving my site. I'm just opening it at my browser. So I don't really want that, right? So sometimes it adds things that are unnecessary. Sometimes it leaves out things that I really do want. And so I'll come in here and edit it. And you really should. You should look at that Claude file. And what goes on is if I close my positron, I completely close this one. When I restart it, and as soon as I launch Claude from this folder, it's going to read this file. It just automatically reads it. And that way it knows it has a very high level summary of the project you're working on and any conventions and norms. So this is when we talked earlier about how Claude Code is more for long-term projects. This is one mechanism of how you maintain that consistency. If you're working on something over many days or weeks, you can keep coming back and updating your Claude file. The one thing I didn't mention is that there is another version of this file, which is on your home directory. And this is a global level Claude. So we have project level ones, like the one inside this project here. That launches anytime I start Claude from this folder. But the one at my home directory, I might have to find it. In my Mac, it's jhelvey, that's my name, and there's these hidden files, .claude. If you're on a Mac and you don't see these little hidden grayed out files, it's Command Shift period. That's the shortcut to show them. You wouldn't be able to find it otherwise. And here there's a Claude file. So that file is sort of global. That's where I can put any settings that I want globally. Like even something as simple as, Claude, I want you to refer to me as JP when you start. You would put it there so that every time you launch it, it's gonna talk to me in the first person or something, if you prefer. So any global settings, you put it there. Any project specific settings, you stick it in the folder that you're working on. All right, that's Claude. Let's talk about modes. Claude can operate in different modes. I have been running this in auto mode, so you can see that at the bottom here. It says auto mode. If I hold shift and press tab, I can cycle through the different modes. Okay. The default is manual. So manual mode is the default place where it starts. It's also kind of the safest one because it asks permission for every single thing you do. So if it needs to read a file, it says, I need to just look at this file so I know what's in it. It's going to ask permission. If it needs to write a file, it'll ask permission. If it needs to look something on the web, it's going to ask. And so you can have total control over saying, no, Claude, I don't want you to do that. I want you to do this instead. And it's a little slower because you're having to read those things, but it's safer, right? It's not going to do something that you don't approve. Auto accept is kind of in between these, where it'll still ask permission for most tasks, like reading and writing files. But as soon as it decides that it wants to make an edit, like it wants to edit a file and put some text in place, it's going to auto do it. You won't have to approve it. It's just going to do it automatically. And then full auto is what I just demonstrated, which again, it's the most dangerous one. Use it with care, but this was a relatively straightforward task, so I felt safe doing it. But if you were like, again, go to this website and book a flight for me, I may not do that in full auto mode because once it starts saying, okay, I want to charge this credit card, okay, maybe not. That would be a manual mode thing. And then planning. I didn't talk about planning. this is generally like something you do when you first start a project. In plan mode, it only can read files. It's never going to write something in plan mode. And it's going to think a longer time about what it needs to do to implement this task. So if I had started this task, instead of just saying, build me this website, if I had been in plan mode and said, I'm going to build this website, help me do it, it will think for a while, come up with a big check sheet of here's all the things I want to do. And then you can approve that plan. You can say, okay, that's good, let's go, and we'll move forward. And then check off the list. This is generally speaking a really highly performant uh, uh, part of Claude Code. Like coming up with a plan first before you try something, it just works so much better when it has a clear plan. So that leads into models. There's different models, and if I have slash model, I can decide what model I want to use to do the task. So Opus and Fable are the two largest. They are the most capable, but they do take more of your usage. We'll talk soon about what that means. So they're more expensive to run. Sonnet is a nice medium. It does most medium-sized tasks very well, and Haiku is very short. Really quick little small things. I want to change this font to that font. Use it for Haiku. And so if I'm in plan mode, I'm going to use Opus. I'm going to use the biggest model. I want it to really think a long time and come up with a really good plan. If I have that plan, though, it's just a check sheet. Here's all the things we're going to do. I might switch to Sonnet because it's going to be much cheaper to run, and it will probably do a very good job if it has a plan to follow. Okay, so you can change your model to save yourself some cost. So what do I mean by that? I mean use fewer tokens. Okay, so tokens are the currency of really any modern AI system with large language models. Tokens aren't quite the same as like characters. I mean, you can kind of think of them that way. Imagine like, this is a token and this is a token. I think that's enough to be like, that's generally the right mental model, right? Every kind of word or something that spits out is a token. So if a model has to think for a long time, if it goes off and does some reasoning for a long time, or it runs a tool, like it searches the web, or it actually writes those files, all of those things cost tokens. And I should be able to see, I'm going to escape this for a second. It doesn't tell me my token usage yet, but I can ask for it. If I put cost, it shows me what I've used. Okay. Now, this is like if I'm actually using it as an API. I have not. I'm using it as a subscription, so I'm not actually paying that right now. But you can see the amount of tokens and things I've used. Okay. So this is important because depending on your subscription level, I mean, you can always pay for more, but at the $20 a month one with Claude, you have two different timers that are running every 5 hours and every 7 days. And you get a kind of a maximum amount of tokens you can use in that before it has to reset. So if I burn all my tokens out and do some really heavy task and I run out of tokens, it's going to say, okay, you got to wait 5 more hours. So this is Anthropic's way of sort of throttling how much they're getting hit by the compute requests. And then same thing for 7 days, right? So you can max that out pretty quickly if you're not very thoughtful about how you're using tokens. You're just using the maximum model and letting everything rip. You can max out your token usage very quickly. As an example of how far people have taken this is, I just think, hilarious, but it actually does work, is there's a plugin called Caveman, where the motto here is, why use many token when few do trick? So you can install this plugin, and basically, it's an extremely popular one. It's like almost 100,000 stars. The idea is that these models tend to be very verbose. They tend to just say all kinds of words when they're explaining something to you. And that takes tokens, right? So if you just have it explain in sort of caveman speak, where it doesn't talk with proper English, it uses fewer tokens. And so this actually does work. It does lower your token usage, although I find it kind of ridiculous and I don't actually use it, but people have. If you're really heavily using your tokens, this can help. Okay, and then one other thing that you need to be aware of as you're building is your context window. Like how much of your context have you used? And so I don't know if it has it in cost, but I think it might be in another one that tells me my context. Anyway, I'm going to escape that. Here, at the bottom here, you can see context. You can also see I'm at 7%. of my 5-hour timeout and 21% of my 7-day timeout. Um, and okay, so I'm only 5%, so I haven't used a ton of context yet. But context basically means, how much of your conversation is Claude having to hold in memory, so to speak. So every time I go back and forth with Claude, if I ask for a change something in my website and then it comes back and makes those changes, it has to send the entire prior conversation back because it doesn't actually know what's been done unless it sends that whole conversation. And so you can imagine after maybe 4 or 5 exchanges back and forth, that size is really starting to grow. It's starting to use tons and tons of tokens, and its context is kind of getting consumed. It can only hold so much at once. And so some tricks to help you reduce that is these two commands, compact and clear. So compact will shrink that. There's nothing else you do with it. You just say compact and hit enter, and you'll see that it's compacting the conversation. So what it does is it goes back over the history of that conversation and it summarizes it. So instead of having every verbatim word that has been sent back and forth, it just says probably something similar to what you see in my Claude file. It'll say, we started by building this site, then you asked me to make a Claude file, and now we're here. And so that's a lot less context for it to have to hold in memory, and you'll free up some of your context space. Clear wipes it clean, right? So you go back to zero, and your session will not know what you're talking about until you kind of restart and say, read the Claude file and look at what we're working on. Okay, so these are all useful tricks to, do more with Claude without maxing out your tokens. And I do this pretty frequently. When I'm working on something, every time I get to a stopping point of some artifact that I'm kind of happy with, I'll compact the conversation so that I don't end up, using more and more of my limits. Okay, so that's just some of the main ones. I didn't talk about effort. Effort is kind of like telling the model how long to think or how hard to think. So if the model is like the brain, this is how much thinking do you want it to do? And again, I'll put it on high thinking at a very high model when I'm in a plan mode, and then maybe just put it sort of middle effort on a smaller model if I have a clear plan of what I want to implement. So now is our chance to practice some things. So we have 20 minutes here. We'll probably only use half that because I expect this won't take 20 minutes for you guys to implement. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start the timer. I'm just going to go ahead and start while I'm talking. Your task is to switch to plan mode and actually come up with a plan. So if you've already built a little site, and you were just doing exactly what I was doing, just start over. Like just make a new site. Make a new site and open positron to that folder so you're kind of starting fresh. And this time start with a plan. So switch over to plan mode like this. I can't actually see it. My controls are in the way. Plan mode. Give it your prompt. I want to build a website about whatever. Make it about something that you are interested in. Um, Build the site, approve it. You can do it in manual mode, so you could see the things that it's asking to do, or auto mode, and YOLO it and hope it doesn't book a flight for you or something. And then try to do something different, like ask for something like change the font and then tell it to rewind. I mean, just try to play with some of these commands to see how they work. And then, of course, init. Make your own claw.md file and see what it comes up with. Maybe edit it. So while you guys are doing that, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do exactly what I said. And I'm going to just restart. Actually, I didn't need to close that. I can just open a new folder. I'm going to go to new site. But I don't know what should my site be about? I don't want to do Tom Hanks again. Anyone got ideas? I haven't checked the chat. It looks like it's been very active here. Um,
I've been trying my best to answer all the questions.
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, we can also use this as a bit of a Q&A. I mean, people can be building as we're going here, but Q&A is good here. I mean, this is like I said, a workshop. We should be active. Imagining we're in a big auditorium and we're all, working on something together. Um, that the really good question about why don't we use Codex or the Claude app? Um, I much prefer using some sort of editor like this in the terminal. The biggest reason I prefer this is I'm trying to get my window out of the way. Did I stop sharing? I did, I think. I can't tell. Okay, no, I'm still here. Is I believe I have a lot more control. Um, like I can see my files over here. I can see exactly where my terminal is looking over here. And so I know where everything lives on my computer. And I kind of feel like if you don't, um, some of the app versions of this make it harder to know where things are living. So if you have used it and you're comfortable with that and you're like, yeah, I know where everything is on my machine, then great. You can use that. It's perfectly fine. Um, but one of the other reasons is you can build more complex artifacts. So we just built a plain website. Let me switch back over to this one. That just has HTML files. And for the most part, none of us are going to hand edit this stuff. This is very messy. Right? But maybe we're building a different artifact. Maybe we're building a data analysis project where we have some data on our computer that we wanted to analyze and make a plot. Or maybe we want to build an interactive dashboard where we need to actually run an app in real time and then view that app in a web browser or something and see if it's working. And so if you're in an integrated editor like this, um, you can do all of those things. There's also all kinds of other little plugins that make this ecosystem just very nice. So Positron was kind of built for data analysis, and that's one of our reasons for recommending it. I got another question here about why not use VS Code. Positron is built on top of VS Code, so it looks exactly like VS Code. So if you're used to VS Code, most of what I've said will feel kind of the same, and you can totally use it. It's perfectly fine. Um, Positron is really just built for more data science applications. And I find unless you are in a world of maybe computer science or something where you do like web development, a lot of what a lot of other people are trying to do with these tools is stuff like make a chart, do a quick analysis of a data set. And Positron is really, really beautifully built for exactly those kinds of tasks. And so it's kind of like a fork of VS Code. It runs similarly, but it's kind of just got a lot more tools for all of those things. That's my recommendations. Like it's easier to edit things when you're working out of a real editor like this, and you just kind of have more control over everything. Um, Yes, Positron supports both R and Python, which is another wonderful thing about it. It's just native. This is not really part of this workshop, but if I have let's just put a R file in here, and then let's put a little Python file in here. Whoops, didn't want to do that. I put these two little things in here, and I open either one of them. It's going to open up R console, and I can just run R code straight here. If I open up the Python one, it's going to open up a Python one for me. And I can run Python code. So very, very easy for running those kinds of code files. Um, but the workflow would be the same if I wanted to, build a Python app that does something. I would go to Claude and say, build me this app as a bunch of PyScripts. Then I can click on it and I can run it right here. Um, so you have that level of control. And again, you don't have to be like a data person to appreciate this. You don't have to be even have any experience, I think, running or writing code to um, actually have Claude build you a script that you could run and look at a result. Of course, if you do know those languages, you'll be able to do a whole lot more and you'll actually understand what it's building. So you do, I think, would make a big argument for learning how to code is still extremely valuable in the world of AI. But this is why we're in Positron. It's also free and open source, which doesn't hurt. Um, let's see. Okay, let's go a few more minutes. I'm realizing I did not actually do what I said I was going to do. I was going to try to build my own little new site and go into plan mode and see. So I want to at least demo something in case anybody who wasn't able to do this, or maybe you're using Gemini and it doesn't have like a plan mode. Um, One other thing I'll demo here is I don't usually type much anymore. I use an app called Fluid Voice. There's a bunch of these now. There's Whisper, Flow, and all these things. But Fluid Voice is free and open source. Um, I prefer free and open source tools. Oh, Gemini has plan mode. Fantastic. Thanks, Alejandro. And I would just speak and it will get my prompt. So what am I going to give um, Okay, let's do Miles Davis. Make me a fan website about Miles Davis. Let's make it just a simple static website, a handful of HTML files with a single style.css file, and give me a page for a few of his most promising or famous albums. I don't know why I said promising, like he's a promising artist or something. Of course he's famous. Okay, so plan mode's going, and it will come up with a plan first. So um, now I'm not just like a greenfield. Okay, so it's deciding. Okay, we have a totally open. And look, as I'm going through a plan, I'm much more hands-on now, right? I'm not just saying go for it. It's saying which albums do we want? Okay, let's just do a few. Okay, great. And then which style do you want? Mid-century print, sure, why not? So it's having this conversation with me already about what kind of thing are you looking for? And this was a pretty poorly written prompt. Um, but you can this is a typical exchange with it, and you can also see how many tokens it's using. It's kind of using it in real time. It's coming up with a plan, and I'm in Opus, I think, right now. So hopefully the plan's really good. Yeah, if you're using Gemini, I think Gemini CLI works pretty well. Like you don't have to pay for this. Gemini works reasonably well. I think that the difference in how it works is it kind of starts at a free tier, and then as you consume your tokens, it moves to worse and worse models. And so it's like, well, if you want to stay free, we're going to use this weaker model and then weaker model, and you can quickly run out of tokens or context or whatever. And that's the problem with it is like you might run out of stuff to work with. Um, I'm going to say go ahead and use auto mode again because I just want to see what it builds. But this was the plan, right? You can see. So it came up with a pretty detailed plan. I mean, it's like this is what we're doing. This is where it lives. Here's the albums. This is how it's going to be structured. I'm going to make these files. I'm going to put the albums inside a little subfolder called albums. Each page is going to have this kind of layout. Um, Very detailed, right? And I could go back and forth with it. I could say, I don't like that plan. Let's change these albums. Let's change the colors if I wanted. And it's going to, start building. Now, for the sake of my own token consumption, I'm going to stop that because I don't think we actually need to build this. And I need to use Claude a lot more later today. So I don't want to burn out my max out my usage too early. Um, let's. What do you think? Should we move on? That's been 10 minutes. We're at 12:45. We have two more sections to go, and the next one I think is going to be the bigger chunk of those two, where we will again have some time for you to practice and ask questions. And so I think if we do this, we could switch now. Pingfan can start sharing his screen and go through his section. Um,
Sure.
yeah, if you want to take a break too. I mean, stand up, move around, that's fine.
Yeah,
And
we can
so
take a
I'm going to
break for
switch to the
maybe
chat now.
five
So if
minutes.
you have a
Cool.
question, I'm going to go on mute and I'm going to try to respond as things
Mhm.
go. All right. So skills.
Yeah, skills. I'll share my screen. Okay, great. And amazing. Cool. Since we're just on a break, there is one thing that you can do in the first section. So like in the first section, you can use your keypad O, or on the bottom left. What's wrong with it? Ah, there we go. Or on the bottom left, you can hover over here and then click on this. So then on page 19, there is a little link here. Click on this, that will open a link to install this plugin. So just copy and paste to your terminal. Open your terminal and just paste and then enter. And then later on, the next time you launch your Claude session, you'll have this, the context, 5-hour limit, 7-day limit. So for all these values, the smaller values, the better. So we always want to keep relatively lower context so that it saves your token, relatively lower 5 hour and 7 day limit, because this is how much you can use. Like, for example, if your 5 hour limit reaches maybe 100, then you have to pause your work and wait until your limit gets refreshed. And same for the 7 day. Okay. Shit. Can I share the link again? Yes. So the link is, you can just go to page 19 of our first section, and this is the link. Let me copy and paste. This is the link. Okay.
That's just to get that line you're talking about, right? So if you want to see
Yeah.
the status
That
line,
little
that's all that
plugin.
was. If anybody was wondering,
Yeah,
right? That was just so that you can see the context and things, and
yeah.
it's like a visual way
Even
to
though I just opened a
use.
very simple terminal folder, a terminal window, and I type in Claude, and then I can see this little bar at the bottom. Very minimalism, and it's really helpful for you to control your session, your limit, and see how much time it takes to reset. So yeah, that's it. I will move on. So in the first section, you have learned the built-in slash commands. These are built in, and like when you install Claude or any other agents you have, they might have some similar commands. They all start with this little backslash. And then this section is a more advanced section, so that I'll just full screen. It's a more advanced section so that it teaches you how to build your own backslash commands. So in this section, we'll talk about what skills are. It's called skills, and how to use a skill, and how to order your own skills. Then what is a skill? Again, it is a slash command that contains a lot of things. It might contain norms, patterns, and full workflows. And on the left, Kai, it shows the typical file structure of a skill. Say that I have a my skill, and under this folder, I have this bunch of files. The mandatory file, the only mandatory file is this skill.md. It is a markdown file, and the name is capitalized skill, and it should be this name. So, and that's it. This single file finishes your skill, and all the other files are optional. Say that I want to use some scripts so that I can teach my agent to conditionally trigger these scripts. So I might have an R script, a Python script, or any other script you want. And then I might also have a folder. Right now, I name it to assets. You can name it anything you want. And in this asset, there might be some references. In this example, I have one HTML as a reference and one styling sheet. So these are all the ingredients for your skill to use. And then how to invoke a skill? Well, it's very simple. Just use human language, say something like, use my skill to do something. And remember to have this slash this backslash at the end. So sorry, at the beginning, not at the end. And if your agent really recognize the skill, this pipe will be differently colored. And for Claude Code, the color is purple. So when you see that different color, it means the skill is recognized and has been invoked. So why do we need a skill? Well, a very good example is for your website project. Say that you want to add a page to your website. What is the normal workflow? Well, you have to describe the page layout. You have to explain how pages link together, and you have to restate all the styling and also the CSS. And every time you add a new page, you got to repeat over and over again. But using the skill, I can just say, use the build web page skill. Say that I have this skill to add a page in this saved design. And one more thing, more than just saving your time, the skill also sort of protects your consistency. Because say that I want to add 10 pages, how is it possible for me to have like all the 10 times of prompts exactly the same? But for a skill, things are possible because every time I invoke the skill, it loads exactly the same content. So that's why we need a skill. And right now, I'll show you an existing skill usage example. So you have this WhatsApp plugin. So if you are also on this page, you can click on this button and see how this page looks like. So this Waza skill, I'll just click on it. And it's made by a Chinese guy who's very interested in Japanese culture. And guess what Waza means? It means skill. So it is a plugin that contains 8 skills, and all of them are very basic and generic. Let's go back to our slides. So the 8 skills are self-proving, self-explaining. So think is the think mode, which plans before you code. UI is the front-end design. Hunt is for you to find your bugs or problems. Check is to review before you ship your product. And then you also have write, read, learn, and health. Now, let's try to use one of them. So if you have installed the plugin, then you will probably be able to use all the skills. So say that I want to use read to summarize a page. How about this page? The George Washington University Wikipedia page. So there are a lot of things, a lot of text, like the history, George Washington himself, and all things are going on. Like this is too long and too much. Then I want to use the skill so that my agent can read this URL for me and write me a summary. So this is an example prompt. Use the skill to read through this Wikipedia article and summarize the takeaways. How about I just copy and go to my IDE and just paste, and then let's see how it goes. And as this is working, a side thing that I want to explain. So this is positron. This is VS Code. They are pretty much the same because positron is built based on VS Code. The largest difference is here. So that for positron, I can also open this is called console, the console session. And then I can start a session. In the session, I can either open Python or R. Say that I want to open R. Then in this panel, I can directly call the R commands. This is how positron is different from VS Code because VS Code does not have a built-in console tab. And you can also construct on your own, but positron just saves you a lot of time. Anyway, let's see how it goes. Well, yeah, it says successfully loaded the skill. It's called read. And there is a ninja in the beginning. This is this is an indication of the skill has been loaded. Then the source is this URL. Then it gives me the summary, what it is. Well, George Washington University, short for GW or GWU, is a private, federally chartered research university in Washington, D.C. And about the basic information and like a lot of the summarized, condensed information. So this is much lightweighted compared with the original text. So this is how you invoke the skill and how the skill works. Let's move on. So say that you want to build a skill on your own as well. So the anatomy of a skill is something like this. Say that in my site, this is your newly created project. Create a folder which is under Claude and then skills. The reason why there's a dot here in the beginning is that in a system, if a folder starts with the dot, that will be automatically hidden. So let's just practice it. Go to positron, and then I don't have any Claude folder. I will just create a folder, dot, Claude, and under the Claude, I will have a skills folder. Under skills, what do I do next? Well, add a my skill folder. Then I will just add the folder. And under this folder, I will add a skill.md file. Then I'll just create a file called skill.md. This is my skill. And you can see the path, Claude, skills, my skill, and skill.md. So this skill is called my skill. And then if everything is constructed, I will just relaunch Claude and it picks the skill up. So this is how the skill.markdown file should be constructed. I'll just copy and paste. Then the structure of the skill, the skill.md file is something like this. You have a YAML header. In the YAML header, there is a name. Of course, it's called skill. A description, which teaches you briefs what the skill does and when to use it. And then the body part, which is the details of the skill. So at the same time, this markdown file is for you to read, and it's also for your agent to read. So your agent works by reading human languages. So say that I have this skill constructed, and then I'll just the easier way is for me to just close this window and then go to terminal, new terminal, and then I'll just relaunch Claude. Enter. Then use my skill to do something. This is how a skill works. You see that my skill here is turned purple. This means Claude recognizes the skill. But if I hit enter, it won't do anything because the skill is just empty. This is just a template. So you don't have to build your skill on your own. You can let Claude do it for you. So imagine anything you want Claude to do it for you. Like I can say I have my skill installed in my project folder. Please turn it into something. And then Claude will just do it for you and everything will be changed. So please turn into a styling skill. Please be concise, something like this. I'll just hit enter. And then Claude will probably do this thing for me. Okay. And it's empty. I will just let it run. Yeah, it's a placeholder. And I'll rewrite skill. Yep. So Claude knows that this is just a placeholder and it will try to retain my structure. And then see, okay, the name is still my skill. I might need to further prompt it so that it changes the skill name into something. But this is how Claude can help you construct the skill. You see, there were steps, rules, etc. And this is how you build a skill. Then next, I want to talk about the randomness and determinism for your agentic workflows. So by nature, randomness exists in all LLMs. LLM is short for large language model, and your agents is a type of LLM. So your agent always work in probability. I'm stuck with the word in some randomness. So that, for example, you give it the same prompt, then it might give you different answers. Say that I have a create image skill. Then I invoke the skill. I say to Claude, well, use the skill to give me a white cat vintage Japanese travel poster. And then I feed the same prompt to Claude 3 times. Then these are the 3 exact results that I can get. They have consistent theme, but varied details. So all of them have a white cat, and all of them definitely vintage Japanese travel poster, but they are not the same. We do not always want randomness. And so there are some workarounds for determinism. So I'll just use my own example. I am a bad cook, but I still like to cook. So I use Claude Help to help me construct the recipe instructions. And these 3 images are just 3 ingredients that I have. So these are cooking oil, soy sauce, and tomato paste. So what can you see from these 3 images? Well, they have the same bottle, even the same texture, because you can see these are glass bottles, same angle facing to the user, and same sealing. Like everything is the same, even same trend of the background changing. But what is different? Well, the left one is, of course, an oil, middle one is light soy sauce, and this light brown color, and right one is tomato paste. You see the texture of the liquid is sort of different. So how did I make it? Firstly, I use a template. So either one of them, how about this cooking oil, can become a template. And this image itself is saved into my skill. And then I use some script. There was an image-to-image Python script that I use, also constructed using the help from Claude, so that we can extract the exact content that I want. And then I can just propagate to the other version. That's why I can start from a simple example and propagate to all the other different examples, retaining the parts that I do not want to change. And then the third thing is post-processing. So for all these labels are not generated using the agent. I stamped the labels after the image has been created. So even now, agents are really smart and powerful. Sometimes, or in a lot of times, agents tend to make mistakes in writing human language. And Chinese characters is one of the cases that it has biggest problem. So in a lot of cases, agent will just write some plausible characters. They look like Chinese, but they are not. So these characters are not written inside the image generation, but it's post-processed. So after the image is generated, this part is blank. Then I use a Python code to stamp the characters here. So all of the characters are exactly correct. They're definitely centered, and even their horizontal level, they are the same. So these three images are super consistent. So this is a simple example of how you can retain determinism when working with agents. Then after that, I got introduced some more specific, sophisticated skills. I'll use two examples, one for my app development for full pipeline, and the other for the image generation, like how I generated all these images using Claude. Actually, it's not using Claude. I use some multiple AI agents. Let's start with the full pipeline thing. So imagine I have a Mac app skill which helps me to deploy my Mac app. I am not a serious Swift coder. Like I didn't literally write any Swift code, but I still have some hobby to create some Mac apps on my own. For example, I have this Node app which works in collaboration with my Obsidian. So I can literally type like pick one node file I have and then just type whatever I want. This is pretty quick, and it's much better than opening a full Obsidian. I'll just open it a full Obsidian window which takes all my space. Then so how did it work? Well, I have a skill. It's called, imagine it's called Mac app. You can just call the skill anything. Then, of course, it has a skill.md file, which is the leading file of the skill, which is the most important thing. Then I have a resources folder. In this folder, I have three different files, and they are self-explaining. So UI is for UI design, update is for updating the file so that it can wrap up as a Mac file, and you can open it without any warning, and also the release. So this skill is very simple, just four markdown files. There's no template, like nothing. But imagine how to manually develop, update, and then release a Mac app. You got to update the version number, you got to build the release, you got to sign and notarize with Apple. This is just a pain. If any of you are Apple developers, this is a pain. Like this blocks most of the developers away. Like even in the official Xcode IDE, Apple makes it really, really hard to do the signature and notarization process. And then finally, since this app is open source, I gotta publish the release on GitHub. And every time I update my app, I gotta go through all this pain. But with my skill, I can just prompt Claude say that I have finished building my app, then I want to update and bump to a new version called something, and then please help me go through all the process. And then the skill will just load everything inside the skill and then help me publish. Later on, maybe after 5 minutes, I will be provided with a link. Then I will just exactly see my new update. This is how I develop my little note app, and also there is a little calendar app. So another example is skill for multi-agents. Even a Claude Code is really powerful. There's one thing that it cannot do, which is generating images. I don't know why, but Anthropic has never put any effort in image generation. But for consistency, I still want to stay with Claude Code or any agent that I pick. So the agent you pick might not be the best one for doing all the job. In this case, you got to collaborate with some further agents. Say that I have a create image skill, and in the skill, I provide API. API is short for, I forgot. API is a thing that you can talk with another service. Something like this. It's like a key. So that in this skill, instead of the markdown files, I have three Python code. in each Python code, I have the APIs. Well, do not directly paste the APIs because that's your key. Paste the API somewhere else. There is a designated file in your machine. Save it there and create a variable. And then just call this variable into into your Python script. If that's too much for you, ask your agent. So anyway, I have three Python code: Gemini, GPT, and Cdream. These are by far three best agents that are used for image generation. Earlier in our in our work in our session, I was asked, do we prefer Claude Code? Well, we do not need to we do not have to prefer Claude Code. We can use any agent we want. It is just that there are different agents which are good at doing different things. Right now, Claude is not good at generating images. Then I use it as a main agent, and then I use the skill to trigger the other agents that I want because they are better at creating the images. Now, this is an image of myself, and I use this skill to generate this Japanese poster version. How about we just work on it live? Say that I want to, how about George Washington? Then this image is from this website. So I will just copy this website. How about this? Well, I would just how about copy this link? I think this link only has this file. So okay, so this is the link. Please use my the real name is called PH image. This is my little trick because my name is Pingfan Hu and my initial is PH. So that this way I can, quickly recognize all my skills. Use my PH image skill to generate a Japanese poster styled image of George Washington built in design inside the skill and say in our root dirt. Then I'll just let the skill run. Then I'll also show this is my personal folder. Use the combination to show the hidden files. And then Claude, inside Claude, there are skills. So this is folder for my skills. The reason why I use PH as style is that I can also see all my skills here because they are all starting with the same thing. So in your case, you can also build your personal skills like this way, starting with your initial or with anything you want to make it consistent so that you can always locate and find your skill names. And also it's really easy for me to, PH something and then I can just, see all my skills. This is a little trick. Anyway, let's let it run and then proceed.
Fan, while that's running, one other question came up, which is, can you share your skills? Are yours public? Are they on a repo somewhere? Or are they still?
They are not public, but they are on
Okay.
they're on my private repo. But I can
Well, you
I,
don't.
I can
It's up to
definitely
you.
show.
You don't have to.
Yeah, yeah.
These we
So
have
for
both of us
example,
have like a ton of skills that we've developed for random things. Most of
yeah,
these are very very bespoke to us too, by the way. So if
yeah,
you just try to copy paste them and run them, they may not
yeah,
work. You might have to configure them, but you get the idea.
yeah. But yeah, the core part is that we want to share the idea of creating skills because right now, there are two directions of why you gotta use agentic workflow. One is that you want to create some publicly usable things so that you can share with others. For example, all my like both of my Mac apps, they are open to the public, and I have some I have some users who are interested in my app, and thank you very much. But another direction is that you want to purify and enhance your own workflow so that it's just for your own purpose. So for example, for this PH image skill, I constructed the skill and I know how to use the skill and I know what is included, what is not included. So it's totally for my personal use case. But the point of this workshop is that you will be able to construct your skills that better fits your workflows, that fits your needs. The skills and all the workflows constructed will be most powerful in your use case. So building a thing for yourself is different from building a thing for the public. And we always start from building things for ourselves. That's the purpose of this workshop. So by saying that the skill can the sophisticated skills can be used for full pipeline and can be used for multi-agents. I think by far is far more than enough. But if you really want to see what is inside the skill, it's pretty much the same. So that I have a skill file, I have a different Python scripts, I even have a Python script for writing the prompts. Another pain for directly invoking the agent, for example, Gemini. I open Gemini and then I want Gemini to construct an image for me. Another pain is that even the agent is really smart, I need to hand type a lot of requirements. The sky is maybe is in this kind of um, orange color, my face and the tree, and then this is Amsterdam, like everything. I need to manually describe, typing a lot of words. Then in my skill, there is a prompt Python script which helps me turn my very simple prompt into a sophisticated groove of text message to the agent. So the agent definitely knows what to do. So it's a combination of multiple agents and also a sophisticated way of enhancing your prompt to the agent. This is why we need a skill. And then um, that's it. That's pretty
George
much it
Washington
for
done.
this section. Yes, let's go to let's
I
go to
wanted to
George
see. I
Washington.
wanted to see what he looks like. Hey.
Amazing. This is a Japanese version of George Washington. You can see how like this they've definitely George Washington. You can see
That
like
is
this is the
hilarious.
original portrait, and this is the like the generated Japanese poster
I
style.
bet
Yeah,
I bet you could be like make him ride a bike now, and then it would work. But
it's
I wanted to interrupt only just to say that like okay, that was
yeah,
cool. It worked. That this is a pretty complex skill, as you can see. Like it's calling different scripts and things, but like you don't have to already know how to do all of that to build something that complex yourself, right? You really just need the idea. You know, your idea might be, I want a image
yeah,
generator type, skill, and go into plan mode and say, Claude, give me the different ways I could do this. And it would come up with some different strategies. And you're going to problem solve with it. So like to me, one of the most fun things that I have experienced with Claude is that it's taught me a lot. Like I have learned a lot of other skills that I didn't have, like actual skills for myself. Because I didn't know how to do that until we came up with a strategy. And I said, okay, let's build it. And once you see it work, then you know how it works and you learn. So you really can teach yourself quite a lot, but you have to, really be engaged with it. So anyway, this was a a pretty cool one. So
yeah.
we have a practice now, right?
Yes, yeah. I'll just let it
Let's
run because I really want to see George Washington riding a bike. Okay,
Yeah, there's no legs in
so
that image, so I wonder how it's going to do the legs.
yeah, good question. We'll see. So practice time, go to page 15 of our second section, and there is a practice. So the core of this practice is that I want you to use our built-in our skills. We have prepared two skills for you. You can just open this link. If you open the link, you will see like this is our workshop repository. It's open to the public. So we have two skills: build web page and publish website. They are self-explaining skills, so you definitely know what the purpose they are. Then copy the link and paste your link to Claude and ask it to copy both skills into your skills folder. Then I want you to try to use the skills and compare if like the effect of using the skill and not using the skill and see the effect and see how easy a skill can make your workflow be. Blah, blah. How easy the skill can make your workflow. Yeah. Anyway, and then after that, you can also run this public website skill and do as it say, and try to publish your website to Netlify, which is a free server, so that your website can also have its own URL like this. So I will stop the counting, and you guys can move on. And okay, I'll pause the sharing. I'll also answer the questions. My God, I see.
Yeah, I'm just reading the chat. Really great
Yep.
chat. Someone asked if we could export the chat. We will. That gets stored along with the recording, so we'll just post it somewhere. So alongside the video. Uh, so you can read it. There is a lot of great questions in here. Um, Good question about extending the workflow when you run out of I mean, other than just waiting. I mean, like I'm at the point now where I wake up and I prompt Claude before I have coffee, because it's going to need to start running on something. And then I have coffee and breakfast, then I come back and something's done. I start my day by getting Claude to get something going as quickly as I can so that if I ever run out of my limit, I run out earlier in the day and then I have more time later to ask more. I could just pay more money, but that is not always easy for everyone, and I don't want to. So, I'm using these limits. I'm pretty much maxing out my limit every single day, all the time. But um, you do have other options. Like, so I switch to Gemini a lot. If I run out, if I can tell I'm about to run out, I'll have Claude write a summary as a markdown file. I say, just, give me a quick summary of the whole project that we've been working on and this specific task we're working on. Then I boot up Gemini. I say, Gemini, read that summary and let's keep going. And I use that until my clock runs out there, and then I go back to Claude, hopefully. Um, so I literally time my prompting throughout the day so that if I have to stop for lunch or something, well, my timer is running while I'm eating. It's it's that ridiculous. I'm also hopeful that like these systems are evolving, and open source models, or open weights models, I should say, are getting better and better. Um, and Claude Code is just one particular harness, right? And so I imagine we're gonna, in a not too far away future, be in a situation where you have much cheaper models to run, open weights models, all kinds of different harnesses, and you'll be able to, interchangeably use some. I mean, that's already a thing. You can already do that, but it just takes more work and setup. And Claude Code is just very, very performant. And there's also a question of trust and safety. Like, there's concerns about sharing our data, which I'm going to talk about in the next section here. Sharing our data with a company like Anthropic or OpenAI, um, and you can operate in a way where you're sharing less information with them. Um, but there's also the question of, we're giving more and more autonomy to these systems. And so I'm a bit more confident that Anthropic's harness is perhaps more robust. I mean, I don't have a ton of evidence to support that other than just my usage of it and not having it do things that I don't want, as opposed to something that maybe hasn't been tested or vetted so heavily. Um, so where you put your trust is a big question. It's a super big open question right now. It might be more in open weights models in the future. Um, so anyway, those are just some thoughts on usage limits and different options other than, Claude Code. The business data question is really important, and I have a thing on that in the next section on should you be using, if you have any data that you are not supposed to share with someone else, you should not be having Claude Code look at that data. That should be pretty clear. Um, just like you shouldn't enter it into a chat interface on like ChatGPT, you should not be having Claude Code look and touch that data, because that is essentially being shared with Anthropic. Um,
I realize I need to share my screen again because I'm missing one more page. People have been asking like, what is the exact purpose of using the skill? Like, firstly, I want to
mm,
share the skills in summary. One skill.md file is enough. That's the minimum skill. And then you can enhance the skill by pinning the deterministic parts with templates and scripts. And the skill can be also used for full pipeline or multi-agents for complicated jobs. These are all the things that we cover. And my my simple takeaway of skills is that a skill is not for the agent benefit. The agent does not distinguish a skill from a template prompt. It just reads the files of context. We make skills for humans, which means we make skills for us, because skills encapsulate a workflow that worth keeping. So skills are best for repetitive work. It it doesn't change anything for your agent if you use a skill or not. If you have a very powerful brain, you memorize all your workflows, your APIs, everything,
mm.
then it's fine that you do not need the skill. But human brains tend to forget things. That's why we want to encapsulate all the workflows, templates, files, APIs, everything. And we know that we might to use them in the future. and we might use them multiple times, even hundreds of times. That's why we need a skill. And I hope that answers the question raised by
I
people
have
who
a
want. Yeah.
I have another point, which is that, I mean, so
Hmm.
workflows is really a great one. I mean, we have multi-step workflows like the ones we just saw, making this
Yeah.
image or something. It's really incredible that you can just give it a set of English spoken tasks, and it will pretty much follow those tasks and
Yeah.
get the job done.
A lot of people
The
do
other
that.
is norms. You know, if I'm building a code base, and in my case, I do a lot of data work in R, there are 1,000 ways to solve a problem. And I have a few that I like a lot better, and they tend to be more efficient or effective or whatever. And
Well,
so, and I have skills that are, you know, like a R data analysis skill that I made that uses the typical approaches that I prefer to use. And
yeah.
so, whenever I'm opening up some data and I was saying, and I want to analyze this, I say, make sure you use the R whatever skill that I made. And now it's
Mhm.
going to use that particular approach when analyzing the data, as opposed to some completely different approach. And so that is just like giving it the norms that you want, and it could even affect voice. Like if you're using it for writing, I tend to not use these much for writing. I still find LLM voice so bad.
AI like
I think
there's
these
so much
models are like I
AI
think writing
feeling.
is writing language like actual ironically the large language model is like language is the thing it's the worst at.
Yeah.
Like it's great at code. Code is very repetitive, and again, if you give it a skill in a very templated way, it'll follow that code very clear, and so it can build a great website. But writing English, it uses all kinds of bizarre metaphors and things that I'm like, why would you say it? Nobody would say it that way.
Also Chinese, like right now,
Yeah, yeah,
Chinese
it's horrifically bad.
a
Um,
disaster. They fed a lot of some commercial or advertisement languages into the Chinese model, and right now, like you can definitely tell this piece of text is definitely generated by AI.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Anyway, I think we should maybe move forward because we already have maybe a half an hour left. So
yeah.
um,
I'll stop sharing.
I'll take the handle back. I don't know if you guys got a chance to play with those skills in that. I mean, our intention is for you to try out, you know, the try out the thing, you know, if you did it. But if you didn't have time to do this, try it later. You know, go home and this website's available, so you can go there and try out this skill. So I'll talk about safety here, and this is not a comprehensive thing on safety, but hopefully
Yeah.
you're. I think hopefully it should be intuitive that like with with the power that these things have, they're really impressive, but they're also somewhat dangerous. Like it can just edit files on my computer. What if I didn't want it to edit that file? What if it did something I didn't want? How do I undo that? What if it has access to data that I don't want it to have access to? And so this is very different from a chat interface. A chat interface, you know, you go to ChatGPT, it will not have access to data on your computer unless you hand it to it, right? So if you have an agent there, it could read a file that you may not intend it to. So so these are just some guidelines, not everything, but we're just going to give you three ideas, but there's others. Using GitHub is my starting point. Um, it is I am teaching in my courses. I'm teaching agentic workflows like this, and I'm also teaching my students to use GitHub because I feel like these should go hand in hand. I almost feel like you really shouldn't use these workflows without using GitHub, or it makes me more concerned. And so, what is GitHub and how does it work? Very high level. Think of it like manual cloud storage. I think that is the best way to think of it. Okay, you might have heard the name, by the way, but manual cloud storage is really the main thing it's doing. So if you use like Dropbox or Box or one of those sites, when you change a file, it just auto syncs, right? Like you open up your folder, you edit something, save it, and it just automatically syncs with the cloud. Um, and so that's the thing we're trying to prevent. When I have an agent edit a file, I want to be able to look at that file before it syncs with the cloud because it might have done something really bad. And so that's what GitHub allows me to do. It traces every single change line by line. Okay, and so you'll see something like this. This is called a diff, where you'll see red where it took something away and green where it added something. And I prefer using GitHub Desktop, which is a way of this is something that GitHub makes itself, a piece of software for me to check changes on things. So you might have some project, like maybe it's this project, maybe it's my site, all this website. Um, and as I'm making changes in these files, I will see things pop up here that said, "Hey, these are changes." So to give you an example, this is a website that we, as my students working on right now as we speak. And you can sort of see some of the changes that were made. See these minus here, plus here. So these lines were taken away, these lines were added. And this gives me a chance to check, do I want that change? Now, this is code, right? We're building a website. But it might just be some text. It might be a plain file that you're working on, or just some notes or something. And in each case, I have the ability to first check that I want that edit, and then I can commit that. I can say, yeah, go ahead and click here, and make sure those things get synced on the web. So that is the primary thing it's useful for. The unfortunate thing I think is GitHub was really first really developed for developing software. And so I think a lot of people view it as like, oh, this is for software people. Like this is for computer science people. And it's really not. It's just a version control system, right? So you can control every single little change line by line. And that is extremely helpful with an agent because if it changes 6 or 7 files, I can open that up and go, okay, this is what's changed. I don't like these changes. Let's get rid of those. And it allows me to keep those changes local before I push them to my cloud. The cloud would be on github.com. This is my site and we have a bunch of different repositories. Some of these are public so that anybody can see them. That would be things like software that we're developing that we think should be open to anybody, or my research. Every research project we do it completely in the open because we want to be transparent. But it might be a private one, something that only I have access to, like this one has private settings in it. And so you don't have access to that. But anything else, if it says public, anybody can see it. All right. So it's designed for sharing. All right. So it has all these other functionalities. I mean, tons of extension features. And if you go to like YouTube and you say, show me a GitHub tutorial and I want to learn it, a lot of times people just get turned off immediately because the tutorial developers start with all these complex things like branches and merges and all these things. This is really for collaborating with other people. And at some point, it's useful to learn them. But if you just want to use it for yourself to version control your own work, then just download GitHub Desktop, watch a couple small videos on that. In fact, even we have our own on GW Coders in our YouTube list. If you find us, we have sessions we've done in the past on GitHub where we kind of showcase some simpler ways to use it. I think it gets you like 90% of the way, and you don't need to learn all these other things. Um, so try it out. It's not just for good version controlling. It's really for at this point like safe work with AI tools. Um, the other one is this idea of building things from code. Okay, so code-based pipelines are a way to act more safely with AI. So here's an example that a rather embarrassing one from not that long ago. I think this was just a few weeks ago. This kind of hit the news. Does anybody see what's wrong with this image? So this is not Nigeria. Actually, none of these countries are right, and this is not even a country. It's pointing to nothing. Like this is very typical like AI image slop. So someone clearly was just like, give me a map of Africa with these countries. And this is an actual map presented by our current State Department at a conference in Brazil. So yes, this really happened by people in our current State Department. And yeah, that's really embarrassing, right? Like this should not be happening at that stage. And it's so preventable, right? If you ask for an image and it just generates an image, that is a pure probabilistic pass, and you're going to get noise, right? You're going to get things that are not correct. If you instead ask insert that in that prompt, say, build me code that renders a map. That's all you have to change, and then you run the code and you get the correct one. By the way, this was by BBC. Really great coverage of this, and you can see where the actual countries are. This was my favorite one, unidentified country. We don't know what we're talking about. Yeah, so this is a different one, right? This is a code-built map. And Pingfan built this with Claude Code in a matter of minutes. And this one was a little more interactive, where you could like click on the country and the bars would disappear, and I don't know, it was kind of fun. But the reason that we're saying build from code is that code is much more likely to be correct. And so if I said, build me a map of Africa with these countries highlighted, and use a R package to do it, that little last bit, and then it would build the R code and run it and then generate the map. It's almost certainly going to be right because it's going to be pulling on libraries that other people maintain and have already vetted. And so the shape files are all correct. And if you don't do it that way, you're just going to get a random image with random borders. So that's just a general, like, that's like one example of what we mean by build from code. And the thing is, like, you don't even have to actually be like an expert in R or Python to use this and to get a better outcome. Um, it's certainly, like I said earlier, like knowing some code, learning how to code, learning Python or learning R is highly, highly valuable because then you can really understand exactly line by line what's happening when something like this gets made. Um, but even if you don't, you're just giving a talk and you have a deadline and you've got 30 minutes to make a map. Well, do it this way and have it run the code and build the artifact, and the artifact will much more likely be correct. Um, so this is what we mean. Like we typically set up a project where we have some data, we have some script in the middle that runs, and then it produces a figure. Maybe this is what our script looks like. Okay. Um, and so you're going from raw data to an output. Maybe it's a figure, maybe it's something else. But the script in the middle is the thing building it, right? So this is happening locally on your computer. It's not a probabilistic thing. This is not um, chat or Claude Code like just guessing at what an image should be. It's deterministic. You will always get this image when you run this script, right? There's no probability involved. And the thing is, this is how we all used to do things, right? And not actually much has changed. I mean, to be honest, it's kind of the same workflow. If you took a class from me on learning how to analyze data, I would have you do these same steps. Set up your work, put things in the right folders, write your scripts by hand, run the scripts, and then verify that the thing at the end looks good. Now I can just have Claude Code do those three steps, but I still have to do this one, right? I still have to look at the map and hopefully be someone who's competent and go, yeah, that's not where Nigeria lives. Something's wrong. Let's go back and check it. So checking your work is always still important. Um, but but this is the only part that's changed. And so to some extent, this kind of democratizes things. If you're not a super experienced coder, you can still get somewhere with this and with trial and error and try it out. But again, you're verifying the output that it's working. And there's limits to that. There are certain artifacts that you might want to generate that do require way more expertise, and you might have to take a class or sit down with Claude and have it explain how it works to you line by line. And but this is a way to work more safely and avoid having random artifacts that are randomly generated as opposed to deterministically generated with like a script. By the way, the other really nice thing about working from code files is that once you have one, Claude is really, really good at taking that and saying, I'm going to apply that same approach to a different context. So we took his script that he made to make the Africa map, and we said, okay, make one of the United States that looks very similar, but make it show me the population. So now you can click on these things and you see the population of those states. And it did it so quickly, and it's correct. And I'm much more confident that it's correct. I mean, we downloaded the data files for this, but and you can do this too. You can download the source files and see how it works, right? Okay, the other thing that I like to call out about like working with code files to generate artifacts is that in many ways agents are actually improving that workflow. I already talked about the idea of like democratizing to some extent. I mean, for a long time, you just simply could not um, run an R or Python script unless you had taken like a class on it and really had a lot of experience. Now you can, it can generate something, it can run it for you, and you can query it to teach you how it works. And so I think that's a really helpful thing for if you want to teach yourself a new language or a new package or a library, you can work with it, right? Um, but the other nice thing is they rarely make syntax mistakes. I up until about a year ago would hand type pretty much everything, and I cannot tell you how many times made typos. Just typos all over my code, and then I run it, there's an error, and I spend another 30 minutes wasting time looking for the error, and it's a simple typo. So that pretty much never happens. It almost never makes typos or misses brackets or anything that would kind of break your script. Um, and if it does error, it can help you figure out where the error is more quickly. Even if you're not in like full auto mode, but the thing is, and you're going one line at a time, you can do that more efficiently with an agent because it's looking over your code with you, and it can help you find those mistakes, and it can also help you stay organized. You'll get better results when you have a very clean workflow. I'm going to do this first, then this, then this, then this, and it can help you in like a plan mode come up with the steps that you might need. So there's a lot of problem solving that is like somewhat templated out. It's not complex. It's just that I need to do it in a particular sequence so that it works. Just like the image that Pingfan made of George Washington. Like there was a sequence of steps that it needed to run this script and then run this one and then run this one. And Claude can help you kind of stay organized. And my favorite thing that humans almost never do, in especially or not enough of, is checks. They can write tests and they can write really good tests. So if you're not sure that the analysis was done right, you can ask it to build a test suite for you. And so something like I'm doing grading for my students, and I want it to build me a test that says everything should add up to 100% if every assignment was there. And so something added up to above 100%. Something must be wrong. And that's a really quick, fast check that it can build for you that would otherwise take a lot of time to do yourself. And people often don't do these kinds of tests simply because they take time to build. So building some otherwise automated testing into your workflows, these are all ways to make sure that when it builds something for you, it's going to be more robust. And you can work with the agent to, I think, come up with things that are kind of better than on your own. Um, okay, so this part is more opinionated because this has just been more of my experience with it, and in particular in like working with data and doing data analysis type things. Um, but a few questions have been asked earlier about sensitive data. What do I do? So there's a few different options. First of all, there is the like you can run models on locally to different extents. So there are open models or open weights models and that you can run on a Mac Pro or something at home. That is going to have a limit to it. If you work with an institution like George Washington University, we have our own high performance computing where we can have a local model running on that machine that's much larger, and I can work directly with my data and it there. And I know that that will only work on that machine, and that data will never leave, and the queries I'm having with it are not going off to some company. So there's things like that, but those require setup and resources. There's simpler things you can do on your own. So first of all, if you're, I mean, this is again one of the reasons we started by saying open a folder and open positron to that folder, because when I open Claude to that folder, it's going to start by looking here. Now, it doesn't mean it's never going to look anywhere else. But if I'm in manual mode and I say don't, you're only going to have access here. And if I see that it's trying to look somewhere else, I'm going to say no, don't look there. So I won't put my sensitive data in this folder. I'll put it somewhere else on my machine, where it's not going to have access to it. And one thing you can do, this is a really simple thing, but it works really well, is you can make fake data. There's two different packages here that do this for us, and they're really great. There's one called Faker. This is for Python, and there's one called Charlatan for R. And what they do is this is on your computer. So before you hand anything to a large language model, you can read it locally into R or Python and say, make me a fake data set that has the exact same features as this one, but everything on it is fake. And so like the way this kind of looks is, well, I can say charlatan, and each one of these things start with CH. So CH, give me a, I don't know, fake company. Metz Incorporated. What's another one? Schmitz, whatever that is. It has like all kinds of, I think it's a credit card. Yeah, fake credit card numbers, right? It can generate data for just about any kind of thing you can think of. And so you can have a fully synthetic, totally fake data set that looks and has all the same characteristics as your current data set. And then you hand that to Claude, right? And so you can work with Claude to build your whole code file, your entire results. It can generate images and charts and summary things. And then you shut Claude away, you turn it off, and you go back and drop in your real file and run that whole pipeline. Right? So things like this are really useful tools nowadays for exactly this purpose, where I have sensitive things that I cannot share. And the only thing I really need Claude to do is build my code base for me, right? I need it to build it, maybe build out a test suite, things like that. I don't actually need it to see the people's names. Luke Skywalker works just fine. Um, okay, so that is all we had content for. I do have this last one. We had this as a demo rather than a actual you practice it because this requires us to use R or Python, and I don't know what's installed on everyone else's machines. But our task, which I might just go ahead and do it, is we were going to say build this map from this website, which was our world and data. This was life expectancy. And it's going to download the data as a CSV. And I don't want it to say make me a map. I want it to say build me an R script that makes this map, and then we're going to render it and see what it does. So how I would do this, I'm going to use my new site because this one's still pretty fresh. I would probably, oh, I can't do this because this is in the way. No, I want, here, got my window out of the way. Um, oh, it's already thinking on this plan. So let's trash this one and start a new terminal. And I'm going to say Claude, and I'm going to do it with, again, fluid voice. So that's the link. I'm going to just speak by prompt so it's faster. Go to that site, download the data that I need for life expectancy for all countries in Africa as a CSV file, put that in a folder called data, then build me an R script that generates that same map that you see on that page, render it, and tell me when you're done. Something like that. Um, and I would usually do this in plan mode and I would manually edit everything, but I'm gonna kind of just stick it in auto probably here so I can answer questions as we're going. But just so you can see, like it's asking me to do things, and it's asking me, do you want to proceed with this? So it's going to, on my desktop, it's going to copy these files down. So it's already knows where these live. Here it is, our world and data. This is the CSV file for that. So it's already found it. It's going to copy it in. And here it is. There's a data file here. And this, you start to see why we're using a tool like Positron. This is a CSV file. I can click on it and I can view it directly here in Positron. So this looks correct. This is global, so it has every country. It looks like life expectancy for all countries. And it's going to go off and build. So I'm going to just let it run. And then we'll see when we're done. So it's getting the continents, it's getting all these data files, and then it's going to build an R script. And so we will not make the mistake of having a wrong map with countries that aren't real. It noticed that I have my own skill, which you can see I use a similar pattern as Pingfan, where I have JPGG This is my particular package I like to use for making plots in R, and it's loaded that automatically. I didn't even ask it; it just did it, and we'll see where it goes. Um, okay, I haven't been monitoring the chat. It looks like Pingfan has been answering away. We can just keep answering questions for the rest of the time until we get a map. Um, and I don't see anything else that I haven't needed to respond to. So that looks like that looks good. Um, Ping Fan, is there anything that has come up that I should respond to that you didn't already?
I've been trying to answer all the questions, and one thing I haven't answered is could you let me know how to publish the website once it is created? Should I purchase my domain or any better way? Good question. Professor, I
Oh,
think
yes.
that's a really good question. Like this, like
Yeah.
unrelated with agentic workflow is just that we use the website publication as a example, but that's worth a shot if you like really you're interested in publishing a website. The short answer is that with Netlify, you can already publish your URL. It's just that it is a free link published by Netlify. And if you want to purchase your own domain, yes, you can do so. And there are just a ton of options.
Yeah. Um, I like this is a Cordo website. If anybody is curious about building cool things like this with Cordo, Cordo's a really lovely, great tool for building all kinds of artifacts like websites and PDFs and documents, especially ones that involve blending code with text, like you see here. So we built this website as a Cordo website, and each one of these slide decks are built using Cordo. So you can build websites and slides using Cordo. I'm giving a talk in a month from now at DepositConf on Cordo. Um, it is called, uh, what is it? My super long title. The Unreasonable Effectiveness of Cordo. That's the title of my talk. Um, if anyone was, yeah, interested about how we're using voice to do this, this has nothing to do with Positron. It's an app called Fluid Voice. So if and in fact we have it in yeah, Pingfan just posted it here, the optional software. These are some of the other tools we talked about. I mean, I use R, Cordo, Obsidian for notes. You might have we mentioned these throughout the workshop, but Fluid Voice is a really nice tool for talking.
And it's
Um,
free.
it's free, it's open source, and that sentence that it just had there, I think is really important, which is your voice never leaves
Yeah,
your Mac. So if you run a command, it's actually running a local model. So
yeah.
it runs a local large language model to take your speech, turn it into text, and it can also do it does post processing. So that if you say like and these things like that, it'll cut that out and just put the text in place. If you're using money, so good point about questions of cost per session. So if you're using uh, the Claude Pro account and you're paying $20 a month or that for it, that you're not paying extra for using Claude Code. Your $20 a month subscription buys you access to Claude Code with those limits that we set on time, like 5 hour limits, 7 day limits on token usage. If it says, you've used $10 or whatever by now, that's how much it would have cost you if you were using their API access. So you can pay for Claude Code sort of per token through an API where you sign up with a credit card and you say, "Here's my card, and I'm going to just start using it," and you get charged per token. That approach usually is a lot more expensive. Like you're going to end up using way more money. So you don't want to have that on. You do not want to be paying for usage credits. You want to be paying, and same for
Yeah.
Fable. Like the Fable model in particular also requires usage credits. You want to be
Subscription is always cheaper than per
yes,
usage or APIs. Make sure you
yeah,
use your subscription. Yeah. And the reason why I mentioned
$20.
API in image generation is that that's the only way to do. And I do not do this so
Yes.
frequently. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the API usage of something like one of these tools is a way to access it through something like R or Python. I can say I can through code say send it this prompt and what do I get back? And that would be more if you're using it to do something like, for example, I used it to process all 54,000 comments on the OMB website that was up not that long ago. And I downloaded all the comments, and then I used a small model to say, tell me what this comment basically categorize this comment as being pro or against it or something like that. And that was like that would be impossible for me to do in like the chat window, right? So I have it go line by line and send those things off in batches, and then come back, and that's all being done through code like this. So there's a lot of different ways to interface with these models, but those things cost money. And I think you can see like Claude Code at $20 a month. I think it's worth it. It's like four coffees, a month. Whereas if you're paying for it per token, you're gonna spend. I could easily spend $20 in a day. And so um, the usage stats you see are like that's the amount of money you would have had to pay basically if
Mm,
you didn't
yeah.
have the subscription. So you can see how quickly it gets up there in
Professor, we
cost.
also have another question that I might not be able to answer. How efficient Cloud is
Wow.
with open weight model? Any particular CLI you prefer? Uh,
Yeah,
Llama
any
or
any
Llama
open one
and
you use? I haven't really used them much. I mean,
uh,
my
I
thing
have a
is dead
little
by the way. I was
experience
just
with that. Sorry.
opening this here. So that's what it came up with.
Man,
Looks pretty good. But the thing is like
amazing.
it's verifiable, right? Like it even got the color scheme. Wow. Super nice. Anyway,
It's just that it
um
doesn't have it has a different taste of border. It uses white border and that's it.
it uses a
Because the
white border,
original
but
image
the
uses black
projection's
border.
also different. The projection's also
Yeah,
different, and there's disagreement. There's border disagreement. It looks like here as opposed to
yeah.
here. right? So this
But
is
anyways,
another
this is
interesting
code
thing.
base. You can always fine tune it.
Yeah, well, depends. So this is where we can get in. Like,
Yeah,
what if you
one
lived in this
place
part of the
that's
world?
missing.
You might be kind of offended if something is missing. Yeah, Cape Verde is missing too, right? So it's not foolproof. Much closer to correct, but the issues there are going to be with the specific package we use, which is Natural Earth. This is a open source package of national borders. It's using what it considers to be national borders, and that is somewhat subjective. Depending on what part of the world you're in, different places recognize different countries, different boundaries, and you will find disagreement. So you need to use one. Yeah, let's have it draw a map of the
Yeah.
Middle East. Not while we're recording this. Like it's like those are political decisions, right? And someone making a mapping library has to make a
Yeah.
decision.
We're not
Typically,
politicians, we are engineers. So
typically, no. This is our responsibility. I think as anyone
yeah.
working with code to build things. Um, to get this right. And typically, most open packages like this, like OpenStreetMap and tools like that, they go off of what the UN recognizes. So whatever UN says is usually right. What you're going to get at least, right? And so you know your audience and know if that audience wants to see that or not. For example, if I ask for a map of North America, it will likely say Gulf of Mexico because that is what the UN calls it, and everywhere else in the world except the United States. So we will call it Gulf of Mexico on our maps because that's what UN says. Right? So if you're giving that talk to this current State Department, you're probably going to have to make that hand edit. Um, right? So anyway, that is those are all like important things when you're working with these tools, but be aware of it, right? Don't just blindly trust it. This is why we always keep saying at the end of these things, you have to check what it
Yep.
produces. Okay. Um, I think I think we can wrap up. I don't have anything else to say unless Ping Fan, didn't you want to say at the very end of this we had some cool comment? This one.
Um I
I love
yeah,
this quote.
let me yeah. So yeah, since JP is sharing, so this is the motivation why I started to study for the agentic workflow and finally resulted in our workshop. Like this whole project started more than 3 months ago. And this is only because I saw this quote. Your success is determined by your ability to speak, your ability to write, and the quality of your ideas in that order. And that's by Professor Patrick Winston in MIT. And he had this course in 2018. And he had that like way before. Like 2018 is just the newest version. So the reason why this is important is that even though your agent is your co-pilot, it's strong powers and it can build up a lot of things for you. Even that is true, your brain is still the most important for everything. You will guide your co-pilot. Like you are the main pilot. You guide where this flight that flies to. So, and this sequence is really important. Firstly, start with your ability to speak. Like you have to be able to digest the workflow of your project and understand where you're going. And then later on, your ability to rate. Because later on, because after everything is done, you gotta wrap up everything. So you gotta have the ability to rate. And later on, the quality of your ideas. So everything that matters is that it's all coming out of your own brain. So there are a lot of like AI or agentic workflow users who just simply build a lot of, I won't say it's trash, but a lot of not so useful content. Like if you go to
Slop.
Twitter right now, there were just
It's a lot
so
of slop.
many. Hmm? Yeah,
Slop. This is the AI slop
slops.
stuff.
Yes,
Yes.
AI slops. There's just so many like bot accounts who relentlessly produce a lot of AI generated things. And right now I can see it from the second, like I can tell it from the second I see it, and I just close the window. So even though AI is so powerful, do not give up thinking. Do not give up like coming up ideas with your own mind. So that's the final takeaway.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
think this website is a perfect example of it. We had this idea early on that we should talk about how agents work with people.
Yeah.
But there's a million things you could talk about. What level, what scope, How should we talk
Yeah.
about it? And we landed on all of this. Now, AI helped us build the code to build these cool slides, right? But the content was really the two of us trying to
Pointless.
think
AI
of,
has no point.
yeah,
Even
yeah.
though
We asked
I
it to
guided
come up with some
through,
slides, and it was the worst
yeah,
slides I've ever seen. It was
yeah.
so terrible.
So
So
AI
you
just
have to
built
have
the
your
website in
ideas.
seconds, and we
Yeah,
tailor the website with a lot of human labor, human efforts, because we want to have a point. And AI
yeah,
right now, even in the near future, AI won't have any active points. Yeah.
yeah.
And oh, another takeaway, if you could bear with me, is that I'll just share my screen. Back to the GitHub page. The reason why we split into two pages is that these are the basic things about GitHub, like manual storage, trace the changes, and also place to share. Especially for this, if we say something is open source, we usually mean that it is open source on GitHub. And the reason why we split these 8 powerful things away is that if you are early users of GitHub, get away from these. Don't touch branches, don't touch mergers, don't touch forks, don't touch collaboration. Because if you touch this in your day one, then you will just give up using GitHub. So even though we have been, like both me and JP, we've been using GitHub for years, we tend to use all these basic features 90% of the time.
Yeah.
But these are still powerful if you want to do, for example, my Mac app, I use tags so that I can know what versions I am at. And the website is built using GitHub Actions. And website URL, you can see that that's GitHub pages. But these are not so frequently triggered. And right now with AI, you can just summon your agent to do all these things for you. So if you're interested in GitHub, get started from this and just don't touch these until you have to. Yeah, that's
All right,
my
folks.
caveat.
We're gonna sign off. We're right at
Mhm.
2 hours. And um, I'll say just message us if there's something more specific you'd like
Yeah.
to talk about. We're big open source fanatics, and we like to use open source tools and be accessible.
Mhm.
So email us, and we'll uh, we'll follow up. But thanks again for everyone's attention, and have a good weekend. Happy Claude coding.
You can message me. Yeah, later. Yeah, I'm not able to answer all the questions. So if you still have like this, like Alexandra, you asked a very good question about um balancing AI and your own ability. That's a good question. And it's not easy to answer. So since our session has ended, you can ask me later on. And my email, my contact. You can just ask me, send me an email, then I can respond to you with with better things in my mind. Anyway, thank you all so much, and I'm signing off as well. Signing off.